As we begin our time of meditation before our message, I invite you to sense where your breath is dancing in your body right now. Sense the vibration of Roger's gentle guitar vibrating in your cells. Let your gaze soften, or let your eyes close if that feels comfortable. And know that there is nothing that you need to do or to prove or to be except present, consenting to the presence of that source, that sacred presence that is alive in you and as you, breathing as you. Receiving who you are with each breath, giving back who you are with each breath. Sensing the filling of each breath in. Breathing in, I fill. Breathing out, I release, I empty. I take in, I release. Breathing in, peace is here. Breathing out, hope is here. Breathing into the fullness of this moment just as it is. And breathing that gift out with each exhale. Sensing the light illuminating, pouring out of every crack in your broken, open heart. Sensing the gift of our light shining together. Beholding. Beholding the beloved friendships. The beloved Anam Kara soul friends here in this space, beyond this space. Consenting to live in the truth of the presence of the holy mystery living in us and as us. In this breath and this breath and this breath. And so it is. And as you're ready, maybe taking a deep breath and letting it out with a sigh. Letting your eyes open if they've been closed. So as we finished our last circle time on retreat last week on Sunday morning, we were invited to talk with two people, trying to find two people we maybe hadn't spoken to yet in this lovely, lovely, lovely group of about 18 folks who gathered from different backgrounds, all to learn more and think more and pray more about what this wisdom of St. Francis might mean to us today. And I was struck that morning by the feeling that I was both empty and full. Like empty of a need to be anywhere else besides where I was. That is, of course, the gift of retreat time. It is also the gift of remembering that with every one of my breaths and not waiting till I go on retreat. And it's what inspired me to lead us into that emptying and filling that our breath reminds us of. But it struck me that I was so privileged to have that gift of time away. And in that time of being with a sacred friend that I've known for 12 years and meeting new folks along the way, there were two archetypes, and I love the work of archetypes, those kind of larger mythological ways of seeing our humanity and our interaction with that divine spark. The two that really resonated with me in this wisdom of St. Francis were the Holy Fool and the Anam Cara. So it was a weaving of the wisdom of St. Francis and a new dear friend, Reverend Simon, who is from Scotland, and to hear him speak ubi caritas, Latin, with a Scottish brogue was quite a thing. But he gave us the gift of song. He plays the guitar, and he considers that part of his medicine to the world and to his own heart. And so of the different ways we entered into that wisdom, those two in particular, the Holy Fool and the Anam Cara, stayed with me. So I'm not going to go into the whole history of St. Francis, but the cliff notes is that he was born in a wealthy merchant class family in the town of Assisi, and he was destined to follow in his father's footsteps as a wealthy, privileged man living with the prestige of his money and that kind of worldly power. And somewhere along the way, much to his father's amazement, he rejected that path. And eventually the order of the Franciscans grew up around his teachings, and it is a life of simplicity, a life of kinship. That canticle that Chris so beautifully read is a compilation of the canticle of St. Francis, and written by Joe Cairns, who was the retreat leader. So this way of shifting from what seemed like a really clear path forward as a young man, here's where I'm destined to go, and absolutely stepping off of that path. The archetype of the fool is that. It is saying yes to a path that to others seems nuts, seems absolutely foolish beyond measure. And as somebody who has taken a few of those leaps in my life, I think that's why having that language around Francis as the holy fool of saying yes to where God is calling, despite what your parents, the people who love and know you, your friends think you should be doing, is part of our call of that simple faith that we so beautifully sang about earlier. So that archetype reveals a way of embodying joy, of embodying curiosity. That is absolutely the photo that I was looking at. Yes. That's really funny. Not funny at all. Holy wow. That's a God wink. It's a way of embracing curiosity, right? Of being able to stay open to a path that our logical minds don't understand initially, and finding that deeper wisdom. We kind of stumble into those deeper truths that God is over there saying, yeah, like, look over here. That's where the mystery is. Come look over here. And yet the shadow side of the fool is the one who can be selfish, capricious. It's a way of following our own whims and impulses, ignoring the wisdom of that deeper way of knowing, and not caring who gets hurt in the process. It is illogic, that shadow side of the foolishness. Deploying bombs to achieve lasting peace, like planting barbed wire and expecting to grow a rose bush. We are witnessing every day in new, horrifying ways the dark, cruel, violent shadow of the archetype of the fool. And in a few minutes, we're going to sing. How can you sing and dream and love in times like these? Don't you read the news? How can you sing, dream, love when so many others grieve? What difference does it make to envision a world transformed by our prayer and service, by our hearts, our spirits, our lives awakening to love? What difference does it make when daily we are faced with the horrors of a world where those who abuse children are protected instead of the children who are harmed? A world where men, and no offense to the beautiful men in our circles, but men with power who have forgotten that their role is to protect and serve the needy, the vulnerable. How can we sing and dream and love in times like these? My heart is broken. My heart is fearful, sometimes enraged. How can we sing? How can we dream? How can we love? Into all of that, the holy fool asks, how can we not? How can we not sing and dream and love in times like these? The other day in our lovely Wednesday Writing with Company group, Dennis led us into our time of writing solo with the Unity Lenten booklet for that day, for Wednesday. And it was titled, I Release Fear. And I don't know if you know this about me, but sometimes when I read those affirmations, it makes me feel a little prickly. How can I release fear? Do you not see? How can I sing in a time like this? How can I release fear? That was my initial reaction. But it spurred this kind of stream of writing. I could feel my prickles rising at, in truth, there is nothing to fear. But then he read, in real danger, fear becomes an ally. But when there is no real danger, fear is an impediment to a life of fulfillment and peace. Thanking fear as it offers protection, even if we don't, at that moment, need protecting, that resonated. And I shared a story that I may have shared before of when I was really struggling with what am I going to do with my life now that I'm ordained, this minister without walls in 2016, and I was working lots and lots and lots of part-time gigs and freaking out with fear all the time about how was I going to make my way in the world. And also just feeling in every cell of my being that I trusted, that I was listening to the Holy Mystery, that voice was prompting me to live my sacred purpose. And our dear friend Sherry Warren, when I was telling her that, put my hands together like this, said, maybe I should pray about that. It's like, oh, right. Maybe I should pray about that. And I laughed about it, but in all seriousness, taking that fear and that trust into prayer, into meditation, into surrendering to the voices that I was hearing, sometimes yelling at me, bringing it to prayer, helped me listen to the nudges of insight that both of those voices were trying to share with me. Bringing that to prayer meant I didn't push the fear away, but I also didn't let it drive the car anymore. And when I paused, I could lean fully into trusting that the wisdom of knowing God's presence surrounds me, also a part of that reading. All my attempts to stifle the fear had only made it scream louder at me. When I listened, that information, coupled with the trust that was as real as the fear at that time, helped me remember in my body, in my mind, in my heart, oh, I have bungee jumped into other new paths. Do I remember what that feels like to step and know that somehow God's got me? So in that moment, this helped. It helped me trust. Prayer, talking with God, journaling helped me trust that I could be a holy fool in this way and that the answer would come. But then on Wednesday, I started thinking about that line. In times of danger, fear is an ally. So where does that leave me today when I feel like there are whole stretches of time when fear is not something I want to release, but fear is the voice of an ally in the face of the actual dangers that we are facing in our country and around the world? I do have fear for the dangers of vulnerable people. Fear about the crumbling structures of our fragile democracy. Fear about the dangers of power over that has forgotten that we are empowered with each other in relationship. So how and where can that fear be my ally? Can I sit with the fear, with my rage, with my grief, and listen to where that is pointing me. And still entrust that I am just where Spirit led me. That we together as a community are people whose simple faith invites us to say yes to loving our neighbors, to putting our hearts and hands and voices into being good, holy trouble and love in action. We are growing roots here in our own community and beyond because of the way we have said yes to being love. And I have that phrase I shared a few weeks ago, Father Adam Bucko, spiritual practices, things like contemplation and prayer and meditation, are not for taking a spiritual vacation. Even though the spiritual vacation of my retreat time was so nourishing, those things are to remind us that we are called to stay open to the voice of God at work in us and as us in the world where we are. We are not called to solve every problem, but we are called to not go back to sleep, to stay awake to the needs of our neighbors, and even this piece that I find so challenging, to love not only our neighbors, but those we consider our enemies. That is a tall order. I know that I cannot do it alone. I cannot. I have to do my own, which I say all the time. I have to show up to my own practices. I have to show up to my time when I'm wiggly on my prayer mat, when I don't want to sit because the whirling of my thoughts is saying, no, just go do the dishes again. No, sit with it. Sit with the fear and the rage. Sit with how hard it is to love my enemies. Hard to sit with what that means for me here. And how am I loving my neighbors? When I think about that prayer, Chris, thank you for being open to me handing off a prayer that I wasn't sure if I was going to have time to read today. And he took that in stride and shared that compilation of Brother Sun, Sister Moon. The gift of the Anam Cara friendship is a deep soul friendship. And we're invited to see all of creation. I embrace the divine essence of all beings. All beings. Brother Sun, Sister Moon. The animals and plants that nurture us. We are in an Anam Cara relationship with them and with each other. So how can we not sing and dream and love? We are beloved soul friends, whether you know each other very well or not, because it is how we have said yes to showing up. We are more than a social club. We have said yes to our brothers and sisters in need of our presence in laughter, in tears, in feeding each other, in sacred service. We have said yes to knowing who we are, the embodiment of the holy. We are fools who dare to begin to see all of creation as sacred. We are fools who see that every piece of barbed wire is an invitation for us to plant a rose bush. We are fools who even dare to sit with that notion of loving our enemies. and over, I know that I have to listen to that voice of the holy, whispering, nudging, saying, come on, Bridge, put your hands together. Sit yourself down. Listen. But I know when it is the most difficult for me to do that, I need your voice. Like I needed Sherry pushing my hands together in that simple gesture. Because we are the voice of that Holy One for each other. I can only do my part, singing and dreaming and loving, when I remember that we are doing that sacred work together. So let's bring that dream, that song, that love, that holy foolishness that says, despite all evidence to the contrary, that our vision, our dream of a world transformed by our love is real. It's possible. So let us be holy fools together. And our singing and our dreaming and our loving are someplace to begin. And so it is.